on your finger. Let me see the lines of your hand. I can see me a tall, dark stranger giving you what you hadn't planned. I drank the potion she offered me. I found myself on the floor. Then I looked in those big green eyes, and I wonder what I came there for. She's just a devil woman with evil on her mind. Beware the devil woman, she's gonna get you. She's just a devil woman with evil on her mind. Beware the devil woman, she's gonna get you from behind.
Yeah, sing it, Cliff. She's gonna get you from behind, brother. You better be careful, my man, my man, my man. Well, witches, dragons, trees that talk, orbs that dance around on your phone, change the scenery on your wallpaper. Hey, this is Rockin' Larry Locken with the Larry Locken 1 channel at pleiadianexpressproductions in association with the Larry Locken 2 channel, at Pleiadian Light Grid Project /YouTube. Hey, I had a few things I wanted to talk about tonight. I don't know if we'll get to them all. There's quite a bit, okay? I want to start by talking a little bit about, before we get into the reason why I did this show, which was witches, because it's Halloween's coming up, and as we know, since medieval times, there has been this stereotype villainizing the witches, for actually the great work that they did, for standing in their own power, for having that kind of power. Elites were scared of them, like they would be scared of somebody now that had a lot of charisma, like maybe they were scared of John Lennon, somebody like that mysteriously passed away, or JFK, sometimes people like Christ, sometimes people with a lot of charisma that really want the best for society. That's not always what, people that want to keep control of the monies, the banks, the medicine, the lives, sometimes they don't always fit with their best interest. And I want to get into that, but I also want to go into talking about the blue dragon a little bit, because it's a hot topic right now, and I've been watching it build for a little while. And I'll talk about a little bit about that, about my thing with the blue dragon, and why I've kind of tried to, I love him, but I've been trying to avoid the subject for a long time. Just it goes back a couple lifetimes, and I'll get into that for a second. But I wanted to get into, talking a little bit about the Pleiadians at first, and a little bit of our history and what that word means on planet Earth. Some of the things that they had a reputation for in the past. They were quite a warfaring race before they ascended, and before the Arcturians guided them towards ascension. And as we talked about on this show before, there was a cosmic war 1 billion years ago between Orion and Lyra, the Lyrans. The Lyrans are Pleiadians. Now, a lot of Pleiadian souls have never been to Lyra, because this was 1 billion years ago, okay? So the Pleiades was colonized by humanoids from Lyra, who were originally seeded by the Arcturians. The Arcturians had seeded Lyra and the constellation right next to it of Vega. Now, Lyra and Vega had a lot of skirmishes between each other. Okay, it was kind of a racial thing, it was. I mean, sound familiar? Most of the Lyrans were light-skinned souls, and most of the Vega, they were dark-skinned at that point in time in our galactic history. So, and even once the Pleiades was colonized, there was still lots of civil wars between various, star planets and things like that before they ascended. I mean, they gave the Arcturians headache after headache for hundreds of millions of years. And that's just how that went. So the Pleiadians were kind of like bad boys and bad girls for a while. The Seven Sisters, you do have 9 stars up there. The reason they call it the Seven Sisters is because 7 of them are considered the sisters. The 2 other stars that are kind of off to the, if you were looking at a map of the Pleiades, or, just a generic picture, it's those 2 stars that are together that are away from the cluster, kind of. They're, off to the, I guess it would be your left, if you were looking at it from west to east, or east to west, however you want to say it. And that is Pleione and Atlas, okay? Pleione was apparently some kind of a real crazy, like goddess, like they called her a nymph, which means a nymphomaniac. She's addicted to sex. Which, you know, who isn't? It's all a matter of how big of a drive you got or not, you know. So I suppose that could fit anybody, but yeah, she was a nymph, and Atlas was the dad, and those the daughters, Taygeta, Merope. Let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. Taygeta, Merope, Astrope, whatever you want to call it, Alcyone, the great central sun, Maya, Electra, Merope. Yeah, I think I got them all. Did I miss any of them? Let's see. You know, Maya, Taygeta, Astrope. There's 3. Merope, Electra. It's 4 or 5. Alcyone. Oh boy, I'm gonna miss one. Pleione and Atlas are the other 2 that make up the 9. But what's one? I'm not gonna really waste a lot of time here on air with the semantics, but yeah, there is obviously one of them that I'm forgetting right off the top of my head. And I'm sure it'll come to me at some point. You know, but I was gonna dazzle everybody. I got 7 out of 8 of them, or 8 out of 9 of them right. So I guess we're okay there. You know, but the witches, the Pleiadians have quite a history with witchcraft. They do. It goes back probably, well, I don't know, since the inception of their star cluster, and you know, probably clear back to Lyra and back into I'm sure that Arcturus has a lot to do with it too. You know, they're cedars. I'm sure Arcturus has a lot to do with it as well. I can see it totally. You know, I can just picture it right now in my head, Arcturus having that kind of a, you know, a past as well. So let's get into it without any further ado. So the Pleiades is referenced in the Bible. The quote goes a little something like, if I can remember it off the top of my head, they use the Pleiades, the sight of the Pleiades in the night sky, as an example of I can't remember who said that exactly, but that it was an example of the beauty of God's creation. You know, it's an example of what beauty that God can create. So, you know, that you know, take that for however you want it. Let me see here. I'm trying to think of. Okay, I'm trying to think of this. Okay, so there is a thing called the Pleiadian altar. All right, it's kind of a metaphysical shop in Salt Lake City. You will find both Starseeds and people that are into Wicca that frequent it. You know, they may even talk with each other about books or whatnot. And I'll get into the difference between the two, because they do list a difference between people that are into Wicca and people that believe that they are Starseeds. Okay. The the owner of this place was quoted as saying that there are no witches here. Her name is Julia Gates, and she says there's no witches there, only nice people. She claims that a witch is. They asked her what her definition, or what the stereotypical definition of a witch is in her mind, and she claims that it's anyone who's using their own self-power to make their lives better. I know, God forbid, right? Anybody that's stepping outside of the box and, you know, not going along with the mainstream, the go along, get along, right? Anybody that's got a little bit of a different thought is, you know, is considered like a, you know, a cruel, hateful, dangerous person, you know, and we saw that end up happening to witches during the Salem witch trials. This started in 1692, and it was going on a long time before that. It's just been really one debacle after another, and they say that over 80,000 people between the early 1500s and the later part of the 1600s across Europe were executed for being into witchcraft, for doing nothing more really than, you know, through consciousness and through the divine themselves, coming up with healing powers, medicines, to help people that were sick and to help people stay healthy. That's really about the gist of it. It was people were afraid. The powers that be were afraid that they would not be needed anymore. That maybe they would be going against what God had to say, and how could these evil witches do that? That's kind of what we deal with a lot today with organized religion. Anything that they're scared of is evil, or I mean anything that is anything that they don't understand is evil. It's real easy to box something in like that. If you don't understand it, hey, it's evil. I've seen it my whole life. I've had friends that have grown up in the church, and even the ones that are open-minded, they're still stuck kind of in that belief system, right? They still want to believe in that faith, that faith. They don't want to, it's one thing to have faith, but then again, it's a whole other thing to have faith and have blind faith and just, not think it through, just go along to get along. Don't learn a lesson from anything, right? Just keep doing what you've been doing, and that way, I'll say one thing, man. Sometimes ignorance can sure seem like bliss. You don't have to really think about anything. You can just say, well, God says this. Well, God said that. Well, the Bible says this. The Bible said that. I really, man, once they tell me that, if I hear those words come out of somebody's mouth, unless there's, and it depends on the context, if they're doing it for a reference point, as far as something that's not going to be preached to me about, then I'll listen. But if they start with that, well, the Bible says this, the Bible says that's wrong, and the Bible says this is wrong, how can you tell in that mixed up book of fables what it says? I mean, really, where does it say exactly that? Because I could go in there, hey, I'm not the world's smartest person, but I can talk a good game of bullshit for a few minutes, like anybody. I could go find anything in there and I can get it to tell you any goddamn thing you want, no pun intended. I mean, seriously. You're talking about a book that's thousands of years old. You're talking about a book that's had book after book after book stripped out of it. Any mention of reincarnation. Every time there's a new era on the planet, whether it's the Romans, the Greeks, Sumerians, who knows? I mean, a little before the Bible there were the Sumerians, but you get what I mean. To the victor goes the spoils, and they alter it. The Roman Church. They alter that stuff to fit their agenda, to fit their message. So you can't really take it for face value, knowing all that. And a lot of the stories in there that seem like myths and fairy tales, there's probably a lot of truth to a lot of them. It's just that people didn't understand what they were seeing back then. I mean, they weren't seeing magic. I'm sorry, this wasn't magic, people. This was one of two things, and it was a combination of both. We just don't know what was what. Sometimes it was new technology. Is all it was super high technology that the people hadn't been used to seeing. And if it wasn't that, it was because these beings were ascended. They knew how to do telekinesis very well. They knew levitation, telepathy. I mean, you name it. Who knows what? The brain power, using, instead of 10% of their brain, using God knows how much. Maybe the whole mother load, maybe the whole 90% with some of them. And think about what you could do. You could start creating, terraforming your own planets at that point. So a lot of it was just, it wasn't just a lot of it, all of it was that. I can't for the life of me, like a lot of people want to see or think, I can't see somebody with a wand going alakazam, alakagoo, ba 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 boo, bee 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 bee, and then, say, and on 1, 2, 3, here you go, boom, you're cured. I mean, but they want to believe that over, they would rather have you believe that, though, instead of like a truth, like there could be, if you were going to believe it and go down that road, right? If you're going to go down that road and believe all that stuff, they don't want you to believe it like it was some real story that actually could play out for real. They want there to be some mythology to it, right? They want there to be some little mystical part to it, okay? And I don't quite get that. I don't know. And it's like that with, when you're talking about witches, Wicca, when you're talking about whether you believe in the fairies and the elementals and unicorns and dragons. See, I believe in all that stuff. I believe it's real documented history. In fact, I've seen them before. But a lot of people that will get into that, like with religion, like with even in the Starseed community in past years, they will use it as a drug. They will use it kind of as an escape. Without being fully aware of 3D and fully work on yourself in 3D, and that doesn't mean give your energy all to 3D and get bogged down by it. No, 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 no. It means just be aware of it. Don't let your energy be robbed thinking about it, because that's easy to have done too. Just be aware of this, that it's there. You know what I mean? It's there. Hey, you know, you don't have to be interested in politics, but it's there. Okay, you don't have to be interested in this, but it's there. You know, or that, but it's there. You know, you just got to be aware of it. Awareness. See, I have this theory that everybody on the planet could just sit down and do nothing, but if the overwhelming majority of all of us were at that same time, just be totally aware of what's going on, aware, not want to spend a lot of energy on it, not want to actually get up and physically do a thing, just the energy of our awareness about it would make it grow by leaps and bounds. Would it improve it by leaps and bounds? Okay, just being aware of it. Yeah, I mean, so it's awareness is part of. They say knowledge is power, but awareness is power. Consciousness is power. All that stuff is power. You know, and you know, when you talk about things like witchcraft and things of that nature, I still think that a lot of people that get into it, and I was talking with somebody about this not too long ago that has a Wicca group. I've known her for a long time on here on Facebook, probably about, oh gosh, I don't know, 10 years or so. And yeah, she says one of the things that kind of does aggravate her a little bit is that she sees some of these people when they talk to her, they seem so interested in it and everything, but it seems like that they're just kind of glossing over the details, and they think the look of it is cool, or the feel of it is cool, and they're just kind of missing the boat. And I can understand that. That would be something in the past that would have really frustrated me a lot, but I think we have to look at it from a positive standpoint, that they're interested in it at least, and if we can strike that fine line and not mess with their growth path too much, but yet at the same time give them some good advice when they really need it. Now, I think it can be a plus, as long as we're not trying to push anything per se down their throats, right? Then I think it could be a really good thing. You know, and you talk about one thing that I was thinking about, that I've been thinking about a lot lately too, and this has all come about, I need to take a step back. This has all come about because a friend of mine, one of her very, 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 very best friends in the world, her aunt was really into Wicca. Really super cool lady, I guess. Really nice, really enlightened lady. And she passed away here recently. And one of the last pictures this lady took, and I have it, I might use it. I'll probably use it for the thumbnail to this audio here. But she had her black, you know, her witch's hat on and black overcoat, and she had an outline of her kitty cat on top of her shoulder, but it was like an electric blue lit up outline, and it looked so cool, and she just looked like such a really sweet lady. And you know, and I've been kind of wanting to broach the subject for years off and on, just to let people know, or not that anybody who's hearing this doesn't already know this, for duh, of course it's not an evil thing, witches. Of course, with anything there can be good and there can be bad, but intentionally witches were wonderful. They brought about, you know, cures for things, lots of homeopathic recipes. Their spells, they call them spells. We either put spells on people. Well, the only evil spell that the majority of them put on anything was some kind of a bad disease, right? They put a spell on the disease to get rid of it out of somebody. Children, you know, women, and that's all they had back there. They didn't have big pharma. They didn't have, you know, there were places where they didn't have a lot of shaman. They didn't, you know, they had to go with what they knew, right? And so basically, I look at somebody like a old school witch, like they're an angel, like they're just kind of an eccentric angel that likes to, you know, dress up kind of funky and say, "Ha, my little pretties, I'm gonna get you." But it's not like the stereotype, like, you know, if anybody's as old as I am, you'll remember, and it used to scare the shit out of me when I was a little kid. Hansel and Gretel, you know, the old witch in the middle of the forest that would get all these kids that got lost, and she'd fatten them up and eat them, feed them full of crap until they got really huge, and she'd cook them, I guess, and eat them. And then you wonder too, where a lot of those fables came from. Because, as weird as that shit is, it didn't come from nothing, okay? It didn't come from nothing. There might have been some crazy, and it's altogether possible, right? It's altogether possible that, say, you take that story, for example, that maybe there was some kooky lady or couple that didn't like witches at all, didn't like the light work that they were doing, and as a distraction, they were doing this to all these children, right, for a while. And nobody could figure it out, and they were just, and who knows, probably some witches got executed for it. I mean, to me, that's very likely. Okay, let me put it this way, something along those lines, something, whether it's way off, close, whatever, something along those lines, to me, is more logical than there's nothing to it whatsoever. Because, my thing is, like, anything you could ever think of, ever, just about, has got to be possible in some parallel reality or in the multiverse, okay? Somewhere in, it just seems to me that some kind of a combination of that would have to be. So, so apparently there was a big concerted movement to really go after these people and get rid of them. It sounds like they wanted them gone from the face of the continent over in Europe. It's a lot of people to keep. That's well, I guess that's what, 80,000. That's, jeez, man, and yeah, that's like 500 a year. Okay, that's like 500 a year in that time span. Now, 500 a year. I just can't, for the life of me. It's it's like 40 a month. Put it this way, that's like it's, yeah, it's like 13 or no, it's not. It's about 9 people a week. So basically, they were picking off for a century and a half. They were offing at least one person a day over there in Europe for practicing witchcraft. Okay, at least one a day. Maybe it sounds like to me it was twice on. Sounds like to me it was twice on Saturday and Sunday they were offering one. And I wonder what their alternative was to medicine. Were they trying to do a little population control, or were they that stuck into God's way that they didn't want to offend God? And what made them think they would be offending God? Who beat that into their head originally? I mean, what, their parents? But who beat that into their head? Where were these gods from with a little g? Were they from Orion, Draco, Sirius early on, some Pleiadians that kind of had an ego about them? Because that was true. There were a lot of Pleiadians that did have a big ego about themselves. They were probably responsible for, some of the evil witches that you've heard about. Sacrifices, things of that nature. It wouldn't surprise me that my ancestors were up to that. It wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't, from what I've heard and what I understand and what it took to get them to finally ascend. This does not surprise me at all that they would have actually, ran amok with that as well before they could calm down and handle that kind of technology, or that kind of intuition, that kind of consciousness. I've heard of the Arcturians mention it before, that the Pleiadians were given nuclear weapons way too soon, destroyed planets in each other, of each other's, all kinds of things of that nature. And so, and just like, look what happened here in World War II when we had the atomic bomb and we dropped those two on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and it ripped a hole in the space-time continuum. That is a big reason why all these incarnates are here at this time, why it kicked it into gear, it's funny, they're mentioning too that a lot of the Pleiadian starseeds, they're from the constellation of Taurus, right? Well, my mom is a Taurus. My dad is a Leo. I'm a Leo. Leo's kind of a Lyran thing, and Taurus is a Pleiadian thing, and there's so many circumstances to why I've got a lot of Pleiadian lineage. Everything from the fact I'm obsessed with the rain, to the color blue, to I'm sensitive to, when I get hurt, I get a little tiny bit mad, but I'm really just sad and frustrated, and just all kinds of little idiosyncrasies that really point to it. I never felt like I was home ever, never felt like that here. Didn't quite ever resonate with the way people treated other people here, and how they could just forget about each other. That's that star cluster, the Pleiades. When I see it, it makes me want to cry. It's so beautiful. And speaking of crying, that also gets me back into the situation with the dragon, the blue dragon. Oh, I love that blue dragon. I've probably had 6 people give me, and not the actual card itself, well, a couple of them, but an email with the card on it telling me that, they were dedicating that to me over the years. In fact, it happened with 3 of them one time over a 2-week period that really didn't even know each other. This was about 5 years ago. And that blue dragon, I couldn't put my finger on it, why he resonated with me so much. Well, when I was a little boy in Lyra, I was in that war with Orion, but it was later on. It was when we fled to colonize the Pleiades, when we fled to colonize, fifth density and higher over there. The blue dragon came with us, and he was like my pet, and I just felt like when I had to leave, when I had to go off to the war, because we were still fighting Orion, all those millennia, centuries, 100,000 years later, however long it was, I felt like I left him behind, and I was wondering if he was mad at me all this time. And I found out recently he's not that mad at me at all. He misses me and I miss him, but I'm not going to, but every time I try to not think or talk about it, it hits me home. I've been telling people, no, I got my mission to finish here. I'm not going to think about him right now. I'll deal with him when I'm done with all this, but I can't take my eye off the prize. But everywhere I turn, and I'm going to talk about him again. I'm going to have Francesca Rose on. Of course, that's David Starr's co-author. The 2 of them just put out a dynamite book. I'm sure of it. The cover's awesome. My copy's arriving on the 21st, Monday. Just got the notification today. It's gonna be a mind bender. I know it. Those 2 are brilliant. They're flawless. Okay, they could, like I keep saying, they could run out. Hey man, they could stop tomorrow. They could quit having anything new come to them tomorrow, and they've already got enough for a worst case scenario, a few more great books. Really, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, it gets better all the time. You get people more involved all the time that come down the pike. Somebody's gonna come along. With these kids that are under 30 right now, that are under 20, and younger, somebody's going to come along that's just going to be a mind bender, that will speak nothing but hardly anything but telepathy, that won't have those, not quite knowing how to interpretate things right, not, getting kind of like Barbara Marciniak with Bringers of Dawn, just didn't quite. It was good. It was a really solid download, but there was things she was off on, things that she was, things that you wouldn't really notice unless you really dissected the hell out of that book like I did. Okay, like reading the hardcover like 23 times, listening to it in her voice probably 220 sometimes. Okay, so yeah, and their book is going to be great. But I'm going to have her on, and lo and behold, before I went on tonight, she posted something about the blue dragon. Everybody's been talking about it again, and the blue avians are really finally starting to get their due. I mean, they've been around since 2014. I know, because I'm not going to tell you who his name is, but somebody pretty damn, well, if you were in this game, anywhere in the middle part at all of the last decade, right? Anytime, you would know who this guy was for sure. Oh, for a fact, you'd know him. Otherwise, if you said you didn't, I wouldn't believe you. I mean, if you said you were active and you didn't know who he was, no, you know who he was. But, I met him once, okay, in a certain situation. Talking about my orbs, talking about have you heard of the blue avians? Well, yeah, and all this, then he went with it, but that's okay, because we do that with each other, for each other. But, you know, and then he was talking about it quite a bit, and, you know, and then they kind of faded to the background a little bit. Now they're really making the push that they always needed to have. And, you know, I know there's a lady that has a Pleiadian page on Facebook, and she channels them right now, and she does a hell of a job. She does a good job. Great job, Octavia. You do a hell of a job with them. And they're beautiful. You know, when I see them, I just think how neat and beautiful, just like with that blue dragon. But the blue dragon isn't the only dragon, of course. There are many, many different dragons from many, many different star systems. And I got news for people, too. It's the blue dragon. When you say just the blue dragon, that's kind of a symbol. There are many blue dragons in the Pleiades. It's not just that blue dragon, right? I mean, they're pretty multidimensional, but not enough to have everybody have that one as their pet. Yeah, you know, they're a symbol, they're real, but there's more than one. A lot more than one of them, you know, and they're beautiful, and they're wonderful, and they're, you know, caring, and you just want to give them a big hug like the avian guys, you know, they're just beautiful, and they're just neat. You know, they're just really, really neat creatures, you know, to say the least. And they're just really incredible and inspiring. You know, and I think that I really like that more people are starting to get into them and starting to pay attention to them, and, you know, and taking things like dragons and unicorns finally seriously. Okay, taking witchcraft seriously, you know, and just giving it its due, right? Because there's so much that we can learn from that kind of stuff. It doesn't mean that we have to completely go away from modern science, and if we get a cold or if we get a really bad ache and pain, we go, you know, boil some wigwam or something to relieve us. But we can, when we take like greed out of the equation, though, right? Like as far as big pharma goes, when we take greed out of the equation and power hungry, dark entity type souls out of the equation, you know, that stuff, Western medicine and Eastern philosophies can be mixed together to make a great hybrid, you know, for helping people. So it's not like we don't have to, you know, we don't have to go completely back into just being like the stereotypical, all our life comes from the dirt and everything comes from the dirt and the ground. Well, it's true, it does, but, you know, everything has its place. Okay? Everything has its place here, and, you know, you've got one side that doesn't want it to have its place here at all, anything that's alternative or any kind of holistic medicines, right? And then there are some that just totally believe that that's all that there is. Well, that's great, but when you're dying in a lot of pain, a lot of that's not gonna cut it. And even if you're taking opioids or something like that, it's not great for a long haul, but that is a natural, synthetic at that, but it's natural. It's a natural plant that grows here, and everything has got to be made out of here, pretty much. I mean, even aspirin. You know, aspirin wasn't invented till 1899, but it comes from bark. Yeah, it comes from the bark off of a tree. So, I mean, everything has a place here. It really does. You know, it has its spot. So, you know, I'm all over the place a little bit because I got a couple more things I want to get to, but the witch thing, very powerful, very special people. You know, they're kind of like starseeds. They're kind of like us in a way. In a way, they're not. We work with more of, I'd say the big difference comes in is, yes, if we ran into each other.
Crystal Hall manifestation. 5 foot.
Whoa, TikTok jumping in on me. The witches thought I was going to say something bad about him being a starseed. No. But, you know, these are people that we have things in common with, that we both have the same kind of common wants for humanity, the same kind of overall love for humanity, and we just want to move this thing forward. We both want to move the needle forward. Starseeds and light workers tend to want to work strictly with, we just kind of strictly want to work with, like, the light, you know, and we want to use the light to move forward with the light. Whereas, you know, it seems to me like people that are into Wicca, and this can be both. You can have a little bit of both these traits in you, but it seems like to me like the witches, they just want to work with not just, but they work with more I don't know, kind of transmuting darker energies, right? They start from that level first, and want to clear through that, which I guess might not be a bad thing all in all. But that's just kind of the difference. But yet, our community, this New Age Lightworker, Starseed, Wicked community, whatever you want to call it, alternative community, right? There's so many vast variations of it. It's not just one thing or another, right? There's all kinds of different. There's something for everybody. As long as you love humanity and you love life and you respect other life, there's definitely a place for you. It doesn't matter what star system that you think you come from, or if you don't think you come from. Whether you're into Wicca, whether you're into being what you would call a starseed. It's just that there's something there for us all. There really is. And you wonder too. It's like, well, how would a starseed and a Wiccan person would get along great, having a cup of coffee together, having a lunch together, talking over a book together. So you wonder about maybe then what would be some of the hang-ups between the two of them, if there would be any at all. I don't know that there really would be. I see that as a starseed we have more kind of a longing and a connection for like space, the cosmos, consciousness, things about that, wanting our spirit to be constantly trying to evolve, having memories and experiences. That's another thing too, having memories and experiences that we think about from past lives, whether it's on another planet, you can't quite place where it is. Maybe it's on another country that you resonate with here now, but you've never really been to, and so you wonder why in the hell do you resonate with that place so much. Same thing with a star system, right? Why are you resonating with that so much, and then it hits you all of a sudden one day probably why you are, and then when you realize, once you realize that the coincidence, and I don't really believe in coincidences myself. I mean, I do believe in a few that prove the rule. I just believe in a couple now and then that prove the rule. But when you get to a point where the coincidence would be more incredible than the truth, then you really know that it's undeniable. You know that everywhere you turn, you get the truth right in your face. Wiccans tend to also, they're kind of like what I would, yes, I know there are starseed shaman and whatnot, but Wiccans are they're kind of like more like shaman. They're more operating from an indigenous earth kind of a perspective, like healing with herbs and medicines from Mother Earth, right? Whereas starseeds kind of try to look outside of the earth and up to the cosmos. That's just kind of that's not everybody, but I would say that if you were to box it in and give it a stereotype, that's kind of what it would be. Now, you wonder, because I had a cousin, or not a cousin, she's actually how would she be related to me? Sarah, she's my step cousin. My step sister Dawn. I've got a stepsister and a stepbrother. I didn't grow up with them though. They're 9 years older than me, and they didn't live around here. But I got to know them when they were older. Anyway, Sarah was really into Wiccan for a long time. She lives up in Seattle, and her boyfriend, they just ended up getting married finally after about 10 years. I mean, he is a starseed. Okay, he believes in. He claims he's from Sirius. He thinks he lived in Sirius in his former lifetime. He claims he was here for Atlantis and Lemuria too, and he really feels strong about it. And the two of them, they have their differences, but they get along pretty good and have for all these years. So it's like sometimes there is some truth to what they say about the opposite, an opposite attracting. And I think, because they've joked in front of me before that, who would ever thought a starseed and a witch would get along with each other. But I can see it totally, though. I mean, I could see it, balancing each other out and really there really isn't a lot of things to disagree on, but maybe just kind of the semantics of the wording of it, right? So, that's it. So I think that I get along great with them. It's funny because I feel like I have everything in common with somebody who's into Wicca, but I don't have anything at all in common with them, and it's really amazing. It's kind of it's refreshing sometimes. It's like they're a great friend or a distant cousin, whereas other starseeds like me, I feel like they're family, especially Pleiadian ones, especially Pleiadian ones. I mean, especially there's something about every Pleiadian soul that's predominantly Pleiadian, of that persuasion that's predominantly that way. There's something we all have in common, even though we might not be alike at all in any kind of 3D ways and a lot of our interests, but there's something that links us all. There's some little quirk, and I know that it's that way with every star race and the incarnates. I get that. With Pleiadians, there's something a little bit more, it's like, it'd be like something so completely obvious, yet it's completely not detectable at all in one. And you're left scratching your head wondering, what the... Well, is it something or is it nothing? So you're not just wondering what it is. You're wondering, oh God, is it something or is it nothing? There's some little quirk we're really, really, really complex yet simple people. As Pleiadian souls, we're really strange, but we're really normal. We're really extroverted, but we're really introverted. We're in both at the same time, and depending on what day, the ratio, right? Yeah, it's kind of funky. Pleiadians are a trippy bunch. We're definitely different. And there's something that links us all. It's just, I can know it, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm seeing it, but I couldn't quite exactly tell you unless, I had an example right in front of me, like two people I might know that are both Pleiadian, right, and get to talking with them, and, I could tell, and, in that moment, I could probably describe it to somebody who wasn't of that, who was a star seed, but they weren't necessarily of that race, or didn't have a lot of it in them, you know what I mean? Maybe they were Syrian, Ascended Arcturian, maybe they were Procyon, Alpha Centauri, and these are just the ones that we know of. There are plenty of small little clusters out there, and RS, different places that have, beings from them, that are incarnated from those places. Not as many as the big name ones, of course, but, still, they're out there. And, Pleiadians tend to be a different breed. And, of course, it also depends on, a lot of it does depend on which soul group you came in with, as far as, like, whether you're a blue ray or an indigo or a crystal child or a rainbow child or a millennial or Gen Z, or, whatever one of those that you came in with, okay? Because you have your star race that you incarnated with, or a mixture of them, whatever. And a lot of people get confused and go, yeah, but I'm not a blue ray, I'm a Pleiadian. No, I have to tell them it has nothing to do with that whatsoever, because it has nothing, absolutely less than zero to do with it. It has to do with, for the most part, it has to do with the fact that you are a star seed, and it has to do with whether you're a blue ray, indigo, or whatever the other. It has to do with what time frame you incarnated into Earth from. That's not always the case, though. There are variances, there are differences, there are people, especially a lot of them, that are a couple years into the next one, right? The next, whatever it went from blue ray to indigos. Blue rays were just pioneer indigos. And by 1981, most every single person born here was an indigo in that first year of 81. All of them, except I know two ladies that are both born in 81, and they're both blue rays. They're both blue rays. So it's, and I suppose that there could be ones that are born younger that are indigos too, a little bit. I know it's the case with before the blue rays incarnated in here completely as a whole, by the time the late 50s were rolling around, you had a certain select few that were incarnating here in 1947, after we had that, 2 years after we had those two nuclear bombs go off, incarnating into Earth, because of that hole that was ripped in the time-space continuum. So it's, you do have a bleed over in both. So, and it matters with what you resonate with, and not that and not necessarily just which name you think sounds cooler. It has, that can be a little bit of it, but it has predominantly to do with, the traits. When you look up the traits, what you vibe with. But make no mistake, it has absolutely zero to do with what kind of a star race, what kind of DNA you have in your star heritage and your lineage. Nothing to do with it whatsoever. I was actually gonna, the first part of this, I was gonna kind of give some words of enlightenment for. I wouldn't call it a prayer. I would call it more of an activation. More to kind of get us in the mood. Today's been kind of a somber day for me, anyway. I think I'll hold off on that one, but I think what I'll do is I ran into. I wasn't going to use it on this show, but I ran into an old heart activation that I had ran into years ago, and oddly enough, it has to do with the blue dragon, the healing properties of the blue, the work that even though the blue represents your throat chakra, right? Well, this is kind of a message that speaks from the heart, not your throat. It kind of speaks from your heart, which is energy. Your heart is nothing but an energy form. It's not love, it's not hate. It can be triggered by love and hate, but it's just pure energy, like anything is. Just like karma. Let me get into that real quick. Somebody was complaining about karma the other day. And so, somebody was talking about it in one of the groups that somebody else was complaining about karma and that they didn't get it, that it was just an energy as to why it worked. Yeah, that's it. That's all that it is. And you know what? That's not to belittle anybody who hasn't, gotten, that doesn't feel like they've had it fair because karma hasn't come back on that person, or they feel like maybe that they have received too much retribution, like they feel like they've paid their karmic debt up already, and why should they still be getting dinged or what they perceive to be dinged? Yeah, it has nothing absolutely to do with any of that. It doesn't matter whether it's overdone to you, or it doesn't matter whether you don't get it at all. It's an energy. That part of it's completely pointless. Yes, it kind of sucks if it doesn't go your way, but it's energy. It's all it is. Everything is just energy. It's just energy, and it's not even about me sitting there and being like, oh, it's easy, Larry, for you to say that. No, it's not really easy for me to say that. It's just that it is. It's an energy. That's it. As far as that goes, it's an energy, period, point blank. You put out, you get back what you put out. Yet it's not quite that simple either. Okay, it just doesn't happen instantly, and it just doesn't happen all the time. And there can be things adjusted as you go down your timeline and go down your path that can negate some of it from coming back around on you. So there's all kinds of things and all kinds of varying degrees of it. It's just how it is. It's nothing but energy. And as much as this sucks too, money's hard to come by. It's hard as hell to come by in 3D. There's no doubt about it. It sucks, but it's just a commodity. And it's just a commodity, and it's just, I can't help but to think that, just like with what I mentioned about the awareness earlier, right? If nobody did a thing to lift a finger, but yet everybody was completely aware of these situations, and I don't mean aware like head in the clouds, aware and not, twiddling your thumbs and not, and purposely avoiding it. I'm talking about, it's just an energy. It's all those emotions are just an energy. And it's, once we're aware of that, without dwelling on it, I think things will be a lot better. We'll be able to step in for each other and help take care of each other a little bit better. Once that happens, I think we're getting there. We're moving towards that. But the dragon, the blue dragon, I love the blue dragon so much. Now I can't get enough of him again. I can't wait to see him again. The blue dragon to me is an angel. It really is. And I'm a little partial because those blue energies are what I consider home. I think the other dragons are beautiful too. And Andromeda and Orion. Arcturus, I believe, has a gold one. Andromeda has a pink one. I thought maybe Orion did too. I'm not quite sure. But it seems to me like that's all I know is my own star cluster, really. I've got a Pleiadian Lyran higher self, and I've got an Arcturian grandfather, grandmother, over self. That's kind of the way I look at it. And to me, it's purely like that. I've spent thousands of lifetimes, thousands in this galaxy. I've spent one other one here. That's it. And it was during the Atlantis-Lemurian nuclear war, and I didn't just here for a long time. I wasn't from here though. There was a reason why I was down here. It was to help try to stop it, but it didn't work. So that's pretty much that goes. But the dragon, the blue dragon from the Pleiades, Diana Cooper. That's right. She was the one that wrote this. The blue dragon, and I truly believe this is the case because of its stature and because of its not going to say it's intimidating, but it's powerful. It commands respect, right? Anything that big commands respect, and especially if you get a loving vibe too from it. You're I can attest to have had to deal with him for a long time, and when I was younger in my days as a soul in the cosmos, he commands he commands you that respect to where you're completely open to him activating you, right? You're definitely ready at all times to receive his healing. You know, you're ready for that, okay? Between the source of the Pleiades, which is like a blue rose, that's kind of what I think about it. When I think of also too, like David and Francesca's book, I love the cover. That blue rose is so Pleiadian to me. It just speaks to the energies from the Pleiades, and it basically puts you in tune with the perfect frequency. And I think that's why I was having such a problem with their book. I would hate to have them go back and hear how many times I called that book your higher frequency. Several. I got it wrong. Your higher frequency. Yeah. Accessing your divine gifts. Yeah, I don't know how many times I called it that. I hope no harm, no foul. For one, I'm obsessed with the word frequency. Okay, I've just always loved that word frequency. I don't know why. It just reminds me of home, of frequency. I'm tuned into that frequency. It reminds me of the Pleiades. But yeah, I must have called it that. Your higher power, your higher frequency. Well, it could coincide, but I mean, it's for the purposes of trying to turn somebody onto a book. Probably not a good idea. But if they hear that, I just wanted to apologize to them. I wasn't trying to sabotage the name or anything. Frequency always gets stuck in my mind. Especially when it's in that teal form like that, right? I get the sense that to me, that form of a blue is almost as, it's hard to say it's not even just as angelic as something pure white. It's close. It's right on the doorstep. It's right on the doorstep. And the thing with blue too is blue, like white, has its own little relationship by itself with the rainbow color, with all the, say, whether you're talking about orbs or chakras or these other energies, right? Blue has a lot, for some reason, in common with the rainbow one, and so, like the angelic white does with the rainbow one. They seem to get on quite well, whether you're, just an observation I've made over the decades. You can take that for what you will with it, but, it's how it goes, really. If you were to ask the blue dragon, if you were to ask him to light each one of your chakras, with the blue rose. Take a blue rose and have him light each one of your chakras with it. Put that intention out there. All he can do, if he puts that intention out there, put that intention out there to have that healing offered, and you can, it'd be a sure, quick fire way to get those chakras cleaned up and taken care of. That's something I might start practicing again now that I'm not afraid to have him in my base on any kind of a regular basis, But, and I think what it'll do is, I think just like with whether it comes to unicorns or whether it comes to sprites or elementals or wisps, I think that it'll kind of push those boundaries a little bit for you. It'll test your willingness to say, with a lot of people, I feel it'll test their willingness to see if they want to be with that person, if they want to go there, or if they want to blink first and end it. Yeah. There is only, like, when you're dealing with whether it's any kind of blue energies that I've ever seen, whether it's the orbs, whether it's the avians, whether it's the dragons, whether it's the translucent color realm from Arcturus, and the blue that Yvonne Ganez gets a hold of all the time in those pictures. It's just phenomenal. Blue is just so, it's supposed to be some downer color or whatever. Not me. Blue makes me happy. I love blue and I love the rain, and I don't know. I really vibe with it, and people say, well, I really resonate. No, I really resonate with it a lot. Just like when I get a hold of that book, that book isn't going up on a bookshelf or anything normally. That book's going to be kept away, basically, under lock and key after I read it. And, yeah, so, but I can't wait to get Francesca on and talk about a lot of these things. She's got a very, very clear, articulate way of speaking, just like David does, and a lot of the younger people do. I mean, I feel like I'm 30 years older than both of them, even though I'm only 6. Not maturity-wise, I don't. Believe me, don't. That's not what I'm getting at all. I mean, I just feel like, in the mind, as far as, my body being old and, things of that nature, I just feel like I'm old. That's what's kind of going on. Yeah, so. But, I wanted to get into this, too, before I let everybody go. Look, how I talked about earlier, like, talking trees, the tree realms. Well, so, when I first started having my awakening in 2010, I started seeing all these faces and these orb faces all the time in trees and bushes, especially after dark. When the streetlight would hit them, too. We had a streetlight right by these bushes, by, this little creek. Every night these things would light in the backyard, too. Nothing but bushes. Same thing. These smiley faces, most of them, some with big teeth faces, some of them with a sad look. All these smiley guys or sad-looking guys all the time. All the time. And if you'd stare and smile at one, the smile would get bigger on them. Just crazy. And these things were alive. And, I've seen videotape evidence of people slowly filming these, and these things just coming in and morphing real slowly while they're in there. It looks like there's all these stick figures that are not human beings, but tree beings walking around. So... so what's going on, though, is that stopped for me about 2017, late 2016, and now it's happening again, and I'm seeing that again, but it's not just that. It's not just this, I looked it up, it's called a Yggdrasil. A Yggdrasil is what it's called. It's a tree of life is what it's called, and it deals with 9 realms, right? And they were showing one of the pictures where it showed all these different realms and bubbles. And I got thinking last night, that's what I was seeing. It looked like a bubble that I was looking at life in, in one of these orbs that I seen. And the orb happened to be on a phone of mine. And I went in and I checked it, and it was gone. And then I looked back at it a few hours later, and that rape was back there. You know, it was really weird. That, I mean, the orb was there, and that's the faces that were in it were there, and they're starting to slowly come through. This really sounds crazy, I know this, but they're starting to show up on my computer screen. They're starting to show back up on the TV again, and they float around real slow, and you can definitely tell they're in there. This starts about 11:30 every night, or it did back then. You know, about 11:30 at night, and it would go to about 6 o'clock in the morning. And it would just, you know, there'd be just this loud, faint and distance, and now you couldn't even hear it. It's so faint. You know, it would, the vibrations get real high, but I can look into my laptop or my tablet, and the scenery changes on there. It changes from like hour to hour, okay? And this orange orb that I have on as one of the wallpapers, it will turn yellow around the edges, okay? And then there's smiley tree beans. There's a tree bean there, and I saw Yvonne Ganez's picture, you know, that I took got a couple of orb pictures from her. She takes great orb pictures too. And there's a, you know, I've got the picture. I showed it to her today, or I sent it to her. I said, look, Auntie, I blew this up, and look at what I saw. It looks like Lieutenant Uhura from the original Star Trek, but only it couldn't have been because, you know, she was a tree person. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, just phenomenal. You know what's going on right now. The veil is lifting, okay? So because the veil is lifting, we're starting to have, you know, all these kind of different things come into our purview. You know, that it's going to start shaking people. You know, so, I mean, it's definitely a crazy time that we're living in, and I can't wait to start talking about this a lot more. And I wish I wouldn't have got such a late start, because I'm getting tired and starting to kind of fade, you know? And I don't think I've really said a whole hell of a lot, right? If anybody's still listening right now, they're either doing it for a comedy act, or they're like, oh, man, he needs to get his shit together. But the trees, the dragons, okay, the Halloween is coming up. We need to embrace Halloween, embrace our witches, give them some love. My fellow Starseeds and Lightworkers, give them some love, because that's what they were there for us for centuries. They were there for that. Yes, some of them ran amok with their freedoms and powers, but so did we. So did we. There was a lot of stuff we did too. You know, we made a lot of mistakes. Believe me, you know, there's only a few of us that are complete angel incarnates, and even those ones made a couple mistakes too. I know, you know. I've only met 3 of them, and the whole 6,000 people I've met a lot that had both star and angelic energies. I've only met 3 ever. 3 that were completely in angelic energy. Completely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's funny, 2 of them were born with it, and one has only been awakened a few years. That's kind of the ironic, complete irony of it. Yeah, so it's yeah, it's pretty wild, really wild, in fact. But, you know, other than that, you know, that's just how it is. And I wanted to make sure everybody knows this one last thing too. These trees are humans. Okay, they are humans. They're ascended humans. You know, you look at, you can look and see on leaves at night. You can see little, you know, like black stick figure looking things. Those are small trees. Those are humans. Those are humanoid trees. Okay, so an orb is like a big spaceship city. Those things can morph down into like a nano quarter of an inch, right? And so you got a whole planet within one little orb you're looking at. And I've been watching it the last couple nights. I'll look at the one on my phone, and you'll start seeing everything move. You know, people slightly moving around in there real slow, and a group of people together, and yeah, it's so phenomenal. Yeah, I can't believe it. But yeah, I think this is Rockin' Larry Locken, and I've been on here about an hour, but I'm trying to think of anything else that I need to touch on. See, I touched on... Okay, I put out the playlist on YouTube. I put out the Orbs, that I did on Instagram and TikTok. All the, I did a series of... I did color energies, and I've also done the Orbs. The Orbs I did first, but the color energies I put on YouTube first. The Orbs got done today on both the Pleiadian Light Grid Project, Larry Locken 2 channel, and the Larry Locken 1 channel at pleiadianexpressproductions.youtube. Okay, so those are out, all 9 of the colors, and then the one being the rainbow. The 10th is the rainbow on them. And the other 9 are, straight colors: white, gold, yellow, blue, green, you get the point, purple, red, pink, and purple, yeah. Same thing with the ascended color ones from Arcturus. Yeah, those ones too. But anyway, so this is Rockin' Locken. I'm out. You can find me. Oh, by the way, I'm on Twitch now. I'm at Tumblr. I'm everywhere, but the only place I really am not is I'm not at Telegram yet, and I'm not at LinkedIn. I'm not at LinkedIn, and I'm not at Spotify, and I'm not at SoundCloud. God, I guess I'm not at quite a few of them. I'm not at any of those four. I'm not at SoundCloud. I'm not at LinkedIn. No, I'm not at whatever I just said. Yeah, I'm not at any other Telegram yet. And I've got that kind of mixed reviews about Telegram. I've been having trouble getting on there, and I got myself hacked when I was on there last time. It seems like it's real easy to hack you there, and apparently it is. So I just don't really want to mess with it too much. But this has been Rockin' Larry Locken, and you can find me at also at Pleiadian Light Grid Project on Facebook. You can find me at Pleiadian Express Productions on Facebook. One place you can go, new name for it, for the first time in 10 years. I started this with a lady by the name of Marianne Rada, who's a channel herself. She does the Pleiadian Renegades. Haven't spoken to her in years, but she was really a hero of mine when I was first coming up. Her and I started a group together called Pleiadian Groups, because the way pages were back then, they were really lame how they were set up. Okay, how a page worked back then, it was really monotonous and tough. So we just said, forget it. We're just going to do a group, and only thing we'll do is we'll post whatever group we're advertising. And so, okay, well, yeah, well, people started to. This was before you could. Well, we didn't realize at the time. We didn't realize we could stop people from posting in there. The commenting was fine, but people would post, and it's like, why are you doing that? That you're defeating the purpose. We're trying to have that here so people can check out what groups we have, not so you can continue to post and get in the way. I mean, what? But that's, people thought that way. I don't know. So yeah, it worked out, but But anyway, this has been Rockin' Larry Locken, and I'm gonna wish everybody a big cosmic dating game kiss. Mwah.